Welcome back for another deep dive. Today, we're stepping back into the Bronze Age.
Yeah.
We're going to unearth the Harappan civilization of the Indus Valley.
Sounds good.
We've got all our intel ready, the research, articles, all the good stuff. And
Oh, we're ready.
we are ready to uncover the story of this civilization.
I'm excited.
This civilization, known for its, meticulous city planning, advanced drainage systems,
Oh, incredible stuff.
and a geographical footprint that puts some, later empires to shame.
Right, and what I think is so fascinating about the Harappan civilization is, despite all this obvious sophistication, it's still, shrouded in mystery.
It really is.
We're talking, what, 2600 BCE to 1900 BCE?
Yeah.
I mean, older than the pyramids.
Wow.
And they're writing their script.
Yeah.
Still
It's
undeciphered.
unbelievable.
We're stuck piecing together their story just from archaeological clues. We've got more questions than answers. How did they live their daily lives? What did they believe? And, what even happened?
Right. What led to their end.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. What do we actually know for sure? I mean, they weren't just, huddled in a tiny corner of the world.
No, absolutely not. This wasn't some small settlement. We're talking a massive area, over 1.25 million square kilometers.
Wow.
Across modern-day Pakistan and parts of northwest India. Think about that. That's bigger than many later empires.
It's huge.
It really makes you think about the level of connection they must have had back then, you know?
Yeah, it's a vast area to govern, especially back then.
Yeah.
And, their cities themselves, those were feats of engineering.
Oh, for sure.
Can you tell us a little bit about Harappan urban planning?
So when they discovered cities like Harappa and Mohenjo-daro in the 1920s, it completely changed our understanding of, early cities.
Really?
These weren't just some random settlements. We're talking planned cities, meticulously planned, with streets in a grid system, just like, many modern cities.
So they basically invented the city block.
Basically.
So what's the significance of that? Beyond just looking organized.
Well, it goes way beyond just aesthetics, this grid system. It points to, a deep understanding of civic management. You get efficient traffic flow, you get easy navigation, it helps with administration.
And to achieve that across such a huge area.
It's mind-blowing, right? It really speaks to their organization, their centralized authority. It's really remarkable.
And what about those advanced drainage systems? Indoor plumbing in 2600 BCE. It's kind of unbelievable.
It really is. It just goes to show you their skill in engineering. We're talking private homes with bathrooms connected to this whole network of covered drains running right alongside the streets.
Wow.
And, get this, they even had separate drains for fresh water.
Oh, wow.
This wasn't just about plumbing, it was about sanitation, public health.
That's incredible. So far ahead of their time.
Light years ahead. It makes you wonder what else they figured out that we just haven't discovered yet.
Right. And then there's their use of standardized bricks, in all their construction.
Yeah.
Was that also part of their centralized planning?
You're picking up on a key thing here, that uniformity in those bricks across that massive civilization. It tells us there had to be some central authority, right? One that could not only decide on those standards, but make sure everyone followed them over that huge area.
That's really something.
This level of standardization, it requires a ton of social cohesion, cooperation on a scale that's just mind-blowing for that time period.
And those giant granaries they found at Mohenjo-daro.
Yeah.
Those had to be important for feeding everyone. Right?
Oh, absolutely. Those granaries are like a giant billboard for their advanced agricultural practices.
Right.
These guys weren't just getting by, they were thriving. Those structures, usually placed right by the riverbanks, they could store tons and tons of grain, which means they understood food security, they were prepared.
It speaks of their planning.
Definitely. Well organized, with a clear system for managing resources and their economy.
So we're painting a picture here of a civilization that was not just large, but incredibly organized, right?
Yeah.
They had a handle on urban planning, public health, economic strategy.
I know. It's amazing.
It's incredible. But they weren't just about bricks and mortar, were they? They had this whole other side, these skilled craftspeople.
Oh, absolutely. These were masters of their craft, especially their bead making, which, as we'll get to, was a big part of their economic activity. It wasn't just city planning. They were involved in trade, commerce across huge distances. Maybe we can explore that side a little, huh?
I'd love to. Let's talk about those artisans.
Yeah.
What made their work, especially their bead making, so special?
So the Harappans, they were known for their craftsmanship. But their bead making, that was really something special. They were like masters of working with all these different materials like carnelian,
Okay.
lapis lazuli, agate, things like that.
Those materials just sound like so vibrant. Like I can just imagine the colors, the designs. Were these beads mainly for decoration or were they used for something else?
Well, they were beautiful, for sure. But from what we can tell, they were also really important for trade.
Wait,
Like these beads and their pottery, textiles, those kinds of things, it seems they used them in their trade networks, which actually stretched way beyond the Indus Valley. We're talking all the way to Mesopotamia.
Mesopotamia. Okay. So we're talking like serious distances here. Thousands of kilometers, thousands of years ago. How did they even manage that?
Well, they were pretty good sailors, actually. Like the city of Lothal, that was a coastal city, and it had this very advanced dockyard. It was a major hub for their sea trade.
So it wasn't just rivers. They were sailing the seas, too. That's incredible.
Oh, yeah. Lothal's a really important site because it really clued us in to just how skilled they were at seafaring and how vast those trade networks actually were.
So they weren't content to just stick to what they knew. They were going out there, connecting with the wider world, exchanging goods, and who knows, maybe even ideas. It's amazing. But if they were so advanced, so interconnected, why don't we know more about their civilization? Like, why is their script still a mystery?
It's the million-dollar question, right? And honestly, it's one of the most frustrating things for us, trying to understand them. That Harappan script, it just sits there undeciphered like a locked door. We've got all these tantalizing clues, but no key to open it up.
It's like trying to solve a puzzle, but with half the pieces missing.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, what can we say about their society? How do they actually function, especially across such a huge geographical area?
Well, based on what we found, we can make some pretty educated guesses.
Okay.
For example, we know their city planning was remarkably consistent, right? Like a clear pattern across their civilization. But when you look at the houses, they vary in size, which tells us there was some level of social stratification.
Meaning some people were higher up than others?
Exactly. Some houses are just way bigger, more elaborate, and that usually points to a hierarchical social structure.
So even with their advanced planning, their focus on things like sanitation, they weren't exactly a classless society.
It seems that way, yeah. But we have to be careful not to jump to conclusions, you know. We're still working with limited information.
That's true.
What I find really interesting, though, is that even with those social differences, it looks like most people lived pretty decent lives. Like, remember the indoor plumbing and drainage?
Yeah.
That wasn't just for the wealthy, it was for everyone. It was the standard.
That's a good point.
Which makes them quite different from other ancient civilizations where only the elite had access to those sorts of things. It hints at a more egalitarian mindset, at least when it came to those basic civic amenities.
That does make you rethink some of those assumptions about the ancient world.
Yeah.
But speaking of mysteries, what about their religion? Do we have any clues about their beliefs? Did they have those huge temples, elaborate rituals like the Egyptians?
Well, we haven't exactly unearthed any massive temple complexes like that, but we do have some really interesting clues about their beliefs, mainly through their artifacts and the symbols they used.
Okay, now we're getting somewhere. What kind of symbols? Give me the good stuff.
Okay, so one of the most common figures we see across different Harappan sites is this mother goddess figure. There are all these female figurines, often with really elaborate headdresses, jewelry, all that.
Interesting.
And to us, that suggests the worship of a mother goddess, probably connected to fertility, abundance, those sorts of things.
Well, that makes sense, right, given how important agriculture was to them.
Yeah.
And the idea of a mother goddess, that's something you see across lots of ancient cultures.
Absolutely. The mother goddess, she was likely a central figure in their spiritual lives, this embodiment of nature's power, nourishment, the whole cycle of life and death.
It's a powerful image.
Mm.
So we've got a mother goddess. Were there any male deities they worshipped?
So this is where things get even more interesting. On some seals, we find this figure seated in what looks like a yogic posture. He's often surrounded by animals. Sometimes he even has horns.
Okay.
And this is what's led some scholars to speculate that this figure could actually represent an early form of Shiva.
Shiva, like from Hinduism.
Exactly. Specifically, his Pashupati form, the Lord of Beasts.
So you're saying there could be this direct link between the Harappans and one of the major deities in Hinduism.
It's a compelling theory, right? I mean, visually the parallels are really striking. But we have to be cautious with interpretations like this. As long as that script remains undeciphered, We're kind of in the dark, you know?
Right. It's all speculation until we can confirm it. But there have to be other clues, right?
Yep.
Other symbols that give us some insight into what they believed.
For sure. The Herpoks, they loved their symbols. Trees were a big one, animals too, especially bulls. And they even used the lingam.
The lingam.
Yeah, it's a representation of Shiva that's still really important in Hinduism today.
Wow. So we're seeing those potential connections again.
Right. And the fact that they used these motifs so much, it tells us their belief system was likely deeply connected to nature, to the cycles of life and death, maybe even to the idea of rebirth, renewal.
It's amazing how these symbols can transcend time like that. Echoes of these ancient beliefs still around today. But even with civilizations as seemingly advanced as the Harappans, even they couldn't last forever. What do we know about their decline? What happened to this thriving civilization?
It's a question that's puzzled scholars for years. How could a civilization as advanced, as connected as the Harappans just disappear?
It's hard to imagine, right? I mean, were they conquered? Was there some massive natural disaster? What happened?
Well, their decline, it happened around 1900 BCE, and it's still one of the biggest mysteries we're trying to solve. We don't have a definitive answer, but there are a few theories out there.
Okay, well, let's hear them. Was it something sudden, like a dramatic conquest? We've seen that happen with other civilizations, haven't we?
That was a popular theory for a while, actually. The Aryan invasion theory, it was called. The idea was that this more warlike group, the Aryans, they swept into the Indus Valley and wiped out the Harappans.
So what happened to that theory?
Well, more recent scholarship, it's kind of poked holes in that idea. It's mostly discredited now.
So if it wasn't a sudden collapse, what do scholars think happened?
These days, the focus is more on those gradual long-term factors, especially when it comes to the environment and how the Harappans interacted with the world around them.
Okay, the environment. So you're talking about like climate change, droughts, floods, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Don't forget, the Harappans, they relied heavily on the Indus River system for their agriculture, for their survival, really. What if that system changed?
You mean like long periods of drought?
Right.
Or maybe catastrophic floods?
Right. And there's evidence suggesting that around the time the Harappans began to decline, the region might have experienced some dramatic shifts in climate. Imagine prolonged droughts that would have crippled their food supply, leading to famine, social unrest, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, it would have been devastating.
Or, on the flip side, maybe there were massive floods, possibly caused by changes in the river's course. Entire cities could have been destroyed, forcing people to flee.
So basically a perfect storm of natural disasters. And that was the end for the Harappans.
It's definitely a possibility. But here's where it gets even more complex. It might not have been just nature working against them. Some scholars believe the Harappans' own practices may have actually made those environmental problems even worse.
Are you saying they might have contributed to their own demise?
It's a sobering thought, but it's something to consider. Remember how we talked about their massive brick production?
Yeah, they were known for that.
Well, think about it. To keep up with that level of production, you need a lot of fuel. That means cutting down huge numbers of trees. And over time, that kind of deforestation, it can have a ripple effect. Soil erosion, changes in rainfall patterns, it can really disrupt the ecological balance.
Wow, it's a powerful reminder, isn't it?
Yeah.
Even the most advanced civilizations, they're still vulnerable to those natural systems, those delicate balances that we rely on.
Exactly. It shows us how connected everything is and how human history is this constant interplay between ingenuity, our ability to create and innovate, and those unforeseen consequences, those things we don't always anticipate.
So the Harappan civilization, it might be lost to time, but its story still has a lot to teach us.
Absolutely. Their legacy, it lives on in so many ways, especially in the region itself.
How so?
Well, think about it. Their influence, it's still visible in later Indian cultures, from their approach to urban planning to those beautiful artistic motifs we see. For instance, their emphasis on well-organized cities, the grid system, the importance of sanitation. Those ideas, they didn't just vanish.
They resonated with those who came after.
Exactly. Later civilizations, they saw the value in that, and those ideas continued to influence how cities in the region were built and organized, even today.
Wow, so those ancient ideas, they're literally woven into the fabric of the region, even now. But it wasn't just their cities, right? Didn't you say they were known for their craftsmanship too?
Oh, absolutely. And those traditions, they continued as well. Take their bead making, for example. Those intricate techniques, they were passed down through generations, influencing the way jewelry was made in India for centuries. And their pottery, those distinctive styles, those designs, you can see echoes of that Harappan aesthetic in later craftsmanship.
It's incredible. It's like even after their civilization declined, their creativity, their ingenuity, it just kept echoing through time.
It's a powerful reminder that while empires may rise and fall, ideas, innovations, those things have a way of enduring. The Harappans' emphasis on social organization, their incredible skill in urban planning, their artistry, it still speaks to us today. And maybe, just maybe, their most important legacy is the way it makes us think about that delicate dance between human civilization and the environment.
It's a conversation we're still having today.
And one that's more important than ever.
Well said. As we wrap up our deep dive into the Harappan civilization, one thing's clear. Even though they remain shrouded in mystery, even though we may never have all the answers, their story is far from over. Who knows what we might discover in the future?
Exactly. Maybe new evidence will come to light, or perhaps one day we'll finally crack the code of their script. The Harappan civilization, it's a testament to the enduring power of human ingenuity, even in the face of an uncertain future.
It's a reminder that we never stop learning, we never stop exploring, and there's always something new to discover about our past. Thank you for joining us for this journey back in time, and until next time, keep asking those questions and never lose that thirst for knowledge.